Okay, welcome to the informational meeting. Same procedures we've had at the others in that do a little bit of a presentation. We won't do as much on the front end slides as we did in the past. We'll just go over any changes that we had on the budget sheets, and then we'll go into the questions and answers. If you do wish to speak, over on the participants area, you'll see a thing that says raise hand. If you do that, that'll put the raised hand there. Then Sue can recognize that you got your hand up. We did have an issue, not an issue, but we had a problem where someone before was pressing one of the reaction buttons, which was a clapping hand, and thought they were raising their hand, but that is not seen on the control panel. So please use the raised hand item that's over on the participants panel. So we will begin with, Sue, you want to bring that presentation up? And Marshall, you want to?
You can roll it on, Sue. Okay. We've talked about these items before. This is just a rehash of the major budget points. We had quite a discussion last Tuesday, and the only changes that I have made to this budget is to reiterate student population the way I see it, and to redefine long-term debt. Most of this information is you've seen before. So secondary costs, including special ed, have been reduced to state tuition rate. The costs remain in effect. School choice remains in effect, I'm sorry. 140,000 added for the cost of school resource officer for both campuses. That's a number from Kevin Joyce. 200,000 added for nutrition to provide free breakfast and lunch for K4. And that's now pre-K4. That's an old slide. We brought in pre-K last time around. Budgets submitted by Raymond administration remain full in effect for Raymond Elementary School and Jordan Small. All service, I can't quite read that, Sue. All services and programs currently in existence will carry forward. They will have been adjusted upward to account for FY 21-22 FY. That's up 3.5% from Raymond administration numbers. Subtractions have been made from their RSU 14 version 9 maintenance and facilities amounts to eliminate those non-recurring costs that will be expended this year. It's $109,000 estimate. Additions to staff have been partially carried in the pre-withdrawal expenses and have increased with the budget to reflect those positions to be hired after July 1st, 2021. I believe there is a document on the website showing those positions. If not, I'll go through them. School board assumes 5 seats with appropriate stipends and insurances. I chose 5. This is my choice. Most Raymond boards have 5. The RSU 14 has 9. I think that's a little cumbersome. That would be a board choice and an electoral choice. There'll no longer be any shared employees. Additions to staff budget have been made to accommodate those shared employees who may wish to come full-time in Raymond. If not, the slot will be open for a full-time employee. Additions have been made to the student population secondary up 20, in secondary up 26, and K4 up 20. That should be not secondary, that should be 5.8, and K4 up 20. Based on RSU 14 population numbers as of September 9/20, the resulting costs. However, these numbers, as Kate has said, may change due to homeschooling options. They may change. Long-term debt has been added to reflect the revolving renovation funds of the boiler lease and the lease for one additional bus, fully equipped. Annual payments are cited in the budget. Last time around, I had the full load. It's an estimated the town will incur approximately $600,000 in initial one-time startup costs, centered mostly in personnel, technology, and legal. Next one, Sue. Thank you. Our budget summary was produced using the RSU 14 version 9 as published April 2020 and available on the RSU 14 website. I believe that's the only budget that's available on the RSU website. Since there have been increases in student population, which will further be skewed by the homeschooling option, it is no longer valid to assume a 4.7% increase, which is a historical increase of the RSU 14 budget over the last 6 years. That won't hold for 21-22. In a cursory review of the estimated Raymond budget provided by RSU 14 on September 17th, there's roughly $150,000 difference, mostly in a definition of a system-wide maintenance or transportation. A further detailed review would be needed to explain those variances. And with that in mind, the subcommittee feels that there should be a savings of at least $500,000 by withdrawing, at least. These are the numbers the way we see them. Pre-K, $132,007. Raymond Elementary School, $1.8 million. That includes 3.5% increase, but a reduction of $53,000 for non-recurrent expenses. Jordan Small School remains intact, plus 3.5%. The secondary tuition has been adjusted to reflect those students at Wyndham High School and at other schools. We currently have 26 students on choice. Co-curricular is the club's stipends. Security has already been mentioned, $140 for an SRO. Technology would be those costs incurred to run the complete technology system, including website, grading, business, et cetera, et cetera. Curriculum assessment and instruction, $280,000. Nutrition, $200,000. School board, $50,000. Office of the Superintendent, $165,000. There's been quite a discussion on this. This is for a estimated 3/5 superintendent. There's enough money in the contingency, which is the bottom line here, to go to a full-time superintendent if that's absolutely necessary, but a majority of us feel that a 3/5 would be sufficient. Business office is $81,000. Operations and maintenance up $100,000 from last time, $968 to include grounds work. Special ed, also known as student services, $1.9 million. Student transportation, $668,000. That does not include the 7th bus. That's in another line. Additions to staff hired after July 1st, $210,000, and a contingency of $200,000. On the other side of it, there's $150,000 balance carried forward, $896,000 coming back to us as 45% of our student ed expenses. So the total local funds would be $10,252,205. This year we spent $10,770,000 as a comparison. The long-term debt has been restated. The revolving renovation fund, we have 10 years to go at $93,496 per year. We're on year 1. The bus lease for the 7th bus will be 5 years, $20,329 for 5 years. We're on year 1. And the boiler lease, four more payments of $27,548. We're on our 2nd year on that one. So the total cost of the town of Raymond is estimated to be $10,393,578. This is an estimate. There's 2 things that are going to happen to this budget. Number one, if the vote fails to withdraw, then the budget goes in the trash can and all these items are lost. If it passes, then it goes on to the next school board and they make their adjustments to an April 2021 budget finance meeting. Any questions?
I can't share and see people raising their hand at the same time.
Levier has your hand up.
No.
Am I good to go?
Yes, I found it.
Okay.
Moved
I
again.
just didn't want to jump in front. Marshall, just a question on the RES and Jordan Small number that you pulled over. Those are from this school year. So do we need to increase those just to reflect any sort of anticipated cost of living, 3%?
I've stated that several times, Kate. And those budgets have, if you take a look at RSU 14 for 1920, and you up at 3.5%, which takes.
And so you did on those numbers?
I did.
Okay.
Grace Levitt is next.
Just want questions on that part, or just anything that anyone wanted to ask or comment on? I didn't want to take things out of order.
There is no order, Grace.
Okay.
Everything's fair game.
Okay. Well, here I go. So when, well, this is actually a question to start off with. When will there be an update on the estimated savings on the website? It doesn't appear there yet. And also published in the Wyndham Eagle. It's not in the latest issue. I think your meeting, was it Thursday that you had the in-person meeting at Jordan Small? That's when it was first stated that was about a $500,000 savings versus a $1.whatever million savings. When will that information be made more public than at the in-person meeting?
I'm not aware of any in-person meetings anywhere beyond this. And the 500,000 is an estimate that I don't see changing at this point in time.
Correct. I'm asking, the previously published estimate was a lot more in terms of what the savings would be. And that's what still is on the town website for the RSU Withdrawal Committee. So I'm just asking, when will that information be updated? Because it was very clear at the in-person meeting I was at that estimated savings is less than half of what was initially estimated.
It's my understanding that that initial version 1 budget has been removed, and this will replace it.
I'm asking when, because I just checked before this meeting started. It wasn't
wrote
yet on the
this-
website.
This was sent out this morning at 9 o'clock. I have no control of what happens to technology.
Okay. And so, but it was stated at the in-person meeting that it would be somehow published in the Wyndham Eagle so that information would get out as well.
I'm not sure how that's going to happen, Grace, whether we take out a separate ad or we do a Roadrunner. I think it will definitely be in there.
It'll go out in the next, when the Roadrunner goes out, it'll also go out in the informational mailing that goes out. So
Okay, thank you.
it will be updated on the website probably as early as tomorrow, because
Okay.
So along with the pre-withdrawal estimated costs, that's now on the website. So you were wondering if it was, that is,
Should
but
be,
that would
yeah.
also be in that informational
Yep.
Yeah.
mailing too. Great. Okay. I should have prefaced this with, thank you for having so many of these. But the two that were in person, as wonderful as it was to offer things in person to people, I don't know if you've watched them yet, but the one at the fire station's completely inaudible for anybody speaking. And the one at Jordan Small was pretty much inaudible. I should not have sat in the back row. I didn't want to offend my brother-in-law because he was already sitting there. And if I didn't sit next to him, I, risk family relationships and all, but still, between masks, which are obviously necessary and all, the questions and comments were not very clear. So I may be repeating a few things during the course of this meeting, just so that it's a little clearly, more clearly stated.
Grace, if I can just say, on that, the intent was to have a number of different forums.
Yep.
I mean, and we recognize that, the in-person ones would be a challenge from the recording standpoint and whatnot. And then evidently at the school, when we had a cricket that was playing with us that we couldn't hear what was coming out in the recording. So, uh, so I mean, you know, there was little things like that, but you know, the intent was to try and get a number of different, as many different venues and as many different times and things like that, so people could, you know, so that as many different people could get there as possible.
I do not mean it as a criticism at all. I absolutely appreciate the effort and the number of hearings that you've all held, and just commenting because it wasn't audible. That's why I'm here again to just state a few things in hopes that it's audible and others might hear that. So there's that. I still don't have an answer to this question. I'm not sure who can answer it. It may be more for the town manager, but what do you estimate to be the increased cost to the town side of the budget, to the municipal side of the budget, for technology that will be due to Raymond being its own school district on its own? Some of the technology is in the estimated budget. I understand that, but it's also saying that some of those services, if you will be now on the town. And certainly there must be an increase in the municipal side of the budget, and hence an increase to taxpayers, if that is now being something done by staff on the town side of things. Does anyone have any idea at all of what that cost might be? Ultimately, that's a cost to the taxpayers too.
Go ahead, Marshall.
It's my understanding from talking to our tech people who spent quite a bit of time talking to their tech people. They came up with these two numbers, 105 pre-withdrawal and 202 post-withdrawal. The town wants to maintain the security of the system, but I believe that Kevin's costs have gone into this budget. I don't think there's any hidden costs out there, any substantial hidden. There may be a few dollars, but I don't think there's anything substantial that has not been reflected either in pre-withdrawal or in the budget. And I hear what you're saying and I understand that, but I think that a lot of these costs could say, well, this is a school expense, so he's going to charge the school. I don't think there's anything going to the town, but they do want to maintain total security for obvious reasons.
I understand that, but given that there would now be additional work on the town employee, one would assume that there would be an additional cost for that, you know, for that employee to be paid for additional work. Maybe it will be a lot, maybe it'll be a little, whether it's maintaining security, maintaining websites, maintaining whatever. It looked like those costs were going to be assumed by the town. And I just wondered what cost increase that then is on the town.
I don't think that's the case, Grace. That's a school expense will be allocated to the school. If a town person performs that task, then it'll be allocated to the school. And I think Kevin was pretty thorough in his budget.
There's the going forward budget. The services from that are picked up in the school budget. They're not,
right.
You know, those additional services are picked up in the school budget.
Right.
There are some costs that are picked up in the pre-withdrawal costs. Some of those technology costs, the town will have to work through as how best we're going to handle that on that pre-withdrawal basis. But the going forward basis, that those technology costs that are getting picked up additionally there are put in the school budget and would be going forward.
Okay, so that was not how I understood it before. If that's the case, I just trying to be sure that any additional costs to the taxpayers are clearly defined.
Absolutely.
And because at some point, at least, it was described as though some of what a school system needs for technology services, some would be in-house, things like helping with a laptop and things like that. But other things like if the server goes down or whatever would end up being the town employees that would do it. So I just wanted to be sure that any increased cost to the town is clearly delineated. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. I'm struggling with some things that are stated as fact that in my opinion would be opinion. So it wasn't said this evening, but I've heard it at least once and maybe twice in some of the hearings and the presentations being done initially, that supposedly that Raymond would have, students would have more educational opportunity. I think that is really more of an opinion. No, the correct quote is better educational opportunity. I would say that that's more an opinion than fact, and yet that was stated as a hearing. It's been stated multiple times that Raymond would have more control. I don't know that that's an opinion, but I don't know that it's the full fact, because again, you would have control over K-8 and absolutely none 9-12. So it's kind of a trade-off rather than more control. That's my opinion. At some point it was stated that the drivers don't get to use the garage facilities, the bus garage facilities in the Public Works building in Wyndham. And I think that's more just a question of their choice. It's not that they're forbidden from using it. One of the hearings, it was stated that they are not allowed to use it, but then it was worded they don't get to use it, which, okay, they don't get to use it because it doesn't fit their schedule and their transportation needs. So just wanted to clarify that. And it was also stated that the RSU has been a one-way RSU. That's not a fact, that's definitely an opinion. So I think most of what I've been seeing look like they're facts, or at least as best as you can estimate things, I realize. But I do think some of the things that have been stated as though they were facts are indeed just the opinions of some of the withdrawal committee members. And I would also just point out on the FAQs, it was number 11 on the frequently asked questions on the website. It talks about, you know, the possibility of Jordansville Middle School maybe being closed at some point if we stay in the RSU, things like that. Obviously, none of us know what's going to happen going forward. I think that has been stated multiple times. A lot of this is a guess, a conjecture, some of it's opinion, who knows? There's so much up in the air right now. But I just wanted to be sure it was stated, because some people don't know this, but it used to be that starting with grade 7, students were bused out of town or transported by their parents to various schools. So it wasn't just at grade 9, it was starting in grade 7 that was happening. So just so people know that. So it's not, you know, misunderstood that, you know, that we have never experienced something with our younger students having to go to other school systems. I think that's it for now, but I'm going to be listening. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Grace.
And Anna Keeney is next.
Hey all, thank you for doing another meeting. I appreciate it. I missed the last two, so I apologize if my questions are redundant to everybody. I was just curious. I remember the last time we went through this withdrawal research process. I know we had several, you know, subcommittees and working groups that reached out, did a lot of research. So I know you guys have been working really hard. I was just hoping you could talk us through that process, what other districts that have withdrawn that you've spoken with and gotten feedback from their experience, the process they've followed. Could you share some of that with us for this go round?
Mark, you want to?
Yeah, we reached out to, I think it was 4 or 5 different districts. And I think oftentimes you are, the research calls it a self-fulfilling prophecy, where if, you know, if you do withdraw and the community has supported that withdrawal, then post-withdrawal, the feedback that we've gotten has been very favorable. The latest, we got the feedback from Sebago, and probably find those comments in a moment in all the stuff that I have, but basically what they said at Sebago, yeah, there were some surprises. I think that's fairly typical budget-wise, things that you don't anticipate. But overall, the feedback from staff was positive, felt they had more control over their classrooms, less top-down stuff coming their way, and in a lot of cases, the community support was enhanced and improved. Sebago had good community support all the way along. It had about 70 people on volunteering, and they really feel that they committed to keeping a local school. One of the biggest concerns in Sebago was with the fear that their school would close and all their students would be bused to other schools in that district. So the other ones that we heard from was Andover. Andover was also in a situation where they were going to believe their school was going to be closed. They had to pay extra to keep it open and ultimately decided to withdraw. And they have been able to keep their local school open. There are several examples like that. The most difficult one that I've faced in the last few withdrawals that I've been involved with is Limestone. Limestone had a pre-K through 12 school, and the local school board, which was based in Caribou, voted to move all their secondary students out, 9 through 12, out of Limestone. And that precipitated their withdrawal move. And at this point, they're not at a point bringing their students back, but I think that's a hope. They're a fairly small school, not nearly as large as Raymond, but certainly a lot of community pride in Limestone. So overall, I think the comments, Stratton Eustis looked like they were going to lose their pre-K to 8 elementary school. They voted overwhelmingly to withdraw, and they are very, very pleased with the results. So you really have to look at the individual situations that the communities are facing. I have been in situations where they go through the process and decide not to withdraw. But generally speaking, if they vote to withdraw, they're pretty happy with their situations post-withdrawal. Does that help?
A little bit. I appreciate it. I know last time when we went through this, the committee members themselves would reach out to those districts. So we got sort of a smattering of information from districts that had both positive and negative experiences to sort of, you know, try to gauge what our experience might look like. So I'm just trying to get a feel for, did we, you know, reach out to other folks that maybe you haven't worked with, Mr. Eastman, or, you know, that the committees maybe reached out to on their own to do that research and have those conversations? It's very different information than we went through this the first time.
Well, one of the big differences, Anna, too, was the fact that we brought on Mark as a consultant there, which was not, we had no consultant the last time. So he brought with him a vast area as well as the attorney Dan in working with various other schools on these withdrawals, so that, you know, that gave us inputs we did not have in that when we went through this in 2014. So you know, it was a function of using his experiences there, his contacts throughout the state as a former superintendent, former principal, as well as the reach outs that were done to ones that had fairly recently withdrawn to see what their pluses and minuses were there. So, you know, it's a little bit different than where we were back then, because we brought in a different set of expertise than we had back then.
And the other question, and thank you for that, Rolf, I appreciate that clarification. The other question, and I don't mean to beat this to death, but it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart, is the kids that do sports that aren't necessarily the most popular sports. So we have about a dozen kids each year that participate on teams in Wyndham, because we just don't have enough numbers. And, you know, I know when we talked about it before, we had said, well, we could form a rec program for any of those sports. Well, if you have 4 field hockey players, it doesn't matter if you have a rec program or a high school or a middle school team, rather, you still don't have enough for a team. And fortunately, in our current situation, they go down and they play with Wyndham Middle School. So have we come up with ideas or thoughts on how we might proceed to make sure they get access at no cost like they do right now?
That's something that I brought up at one of the meetings, and I don't think you were there, Anna, where I said parents, can go and approach the school board. Parents can go and, possibly come up with ideas as far as how to do their own teams. And Karina Benke had said to me, what happens is a lot of parents have to work. So if they're not there, if the teachers aren't already doing the programs, then what happens is the parents can't do it because they have to be at work. So it would be something where it has to be started at school. Either go talk to the school board as far as doing a program, talk to Randy to see how you guys can involve more kids, including the fifth graders. In that case, the superintendent could then reach out to other schools as far as maybe smaller schools that are close that have small teams too, to be able to play smaller leagues or something like that. Those are just some alternatives.
Yeah, and I mean, I tell you, I speak from experience. I have, as you know, I say it all the time. I have a daughter that's a hockey player. And in middle school, you do not have a plethora of female hockey players. So for us, she was able to go and play with Wyndham Middle School. The challenge there is we have a great basketball program in Raymond. Everybody plays basketball, which is the same season as hockey season. So there aren't any other kids to pull onto a hockey team and play with her. So that was really crucial for us as being part of, a district where she could do that and we could be part of our community and part of our district.
So are you talking hockey or field hockey?
Well, for my daughter in particular, it was ice hockey.
Okay, that's when you weren't saying field hockey. So one of the other things too is I remember the high school down there. I know that they had a lot of kids going out for the baseball teams, the boys baseball teams, and then a bunch of them came over to the lacrosse. So I mean, we can always introduce it. There's no reason why not. None at all, and hockey, that one might be a tough one. Yeah, good for her though. Good for her.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions.
Katie, you're next.
I'm on mute. I was on mute. I lowered my hand instead of unmuting myself. I think Jen may have been before me. I don't want to cut anyone off.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I have a couple of comments and questions. So first of all, thank you to the withdrawal committee. I know this represents a lot of work. I know everybody's put a lot of time into this, and I know Marshall in particular. I know you were very thoughtful about the budget you put forth, and
Thank you, Jim.
very transparent about questions that have come forth. So thanks for everybody's work. This is deja vu for sure. In fact, about half of us on this call were part of the last withdrawal committee. And for those who don't know me, my name is Jen Moore. I was a board member at that time and was on the withdrawal committee. I think we only made it to 3 or 4 before we disbanded. We were able to fix the cost sharing formula. We quickly decided that the finances weren't going to work. And so I'm frankly baffled about why we're here again when we have all the parents that have been on calls have told you what a great RSU 14. So I've got 2 kids that are now in high school. My last just went as a freshman now in Wyndham. And so I've raised my 2 kids through this district and again had a fabulous educational experience. I've tried to listen to, as Grace said, I wasn't able to listen to all of the sessions, but I've listened to all those that I could, and I'm not hearing any reason for withdrawal that has to do with better education. I know you said you think you're going to have a better education, but there's nothing that I've heard that makes me believe that. I think it's incredibly difficult to replicate the caliber of the administration that we have for the RSU. So we have a very capable and competent superintendent. We have curriculum advisors. We have access to folks that can help lead us. Imagine being our own small district in the time of COVID and all of the things we would be having to figure out by ourselves, and having the support of this district is huge. A couple of questions that I have was around the percentage, and I'm kind of catching up on the budget. So I think in your opening comments, Marshall, you said the 4.7% didn't make sense this year, but then I think I heard you say to Kate that you did apply a 3% increase to the budget. And I'm just curious if that is a 1-year decrease because additional homeschooling and things like that, and would 22.
No, there's confusion there, Kate. We're talking about Jim, we're talking about two different things. One, when I did the budget, I started this budget process about 18 months ago. And when I looked at it in February of this year, I looked at version 6, I think, of the unfinal RSU 14 budget. And I took those numbers for RES and Jordan Small up 3.5% for just cost of living to get to 21-22. The 4.7% reflects the 6-year average of the RSU increase to the town of Raymond. It was 10.3 million. It went to 10.77 million this year. And I'm estimating based on a 6-year historical that it'll go up to 11.235 next year, which is the 4.7 increase. That's an apples and orange comparison that you made.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that
Okay.
clarification. Another question I had was just what percentage of our high school kiddos go to Wyndham High as opposed to the other schools that we have choice for?
I can't answer that with a percentage. I can answer it with a number, and we have 182. We have 156 at the high school and 26 at choice.
Okay, so I think that's important to note, right? When we think about the loss of voice that we're going to have at the high school. Joe, I remember an earlier comment that you made, well, we don't have a voice at NYA. I don't think anybody would expect a town to have a voice at a private school, but I would expect to have a voice at the school where the vast majority of our kids go.
Right.
And so we lose that. I know you all feel that we don't have a voice anyway because we're outnumbered on the school board, but I have to say, I never heard from any of you when I was a school board member, except in this kind of form of attack, quite frankly. Let's withdraw because we're so unhappy. In fact, during my tenure there, I was contacted twice by anybody, and one was by a Wyndham resident, actually. So I think, I worry that we're putting fear tactics out there, the Jordan Small thing. I think, Teresa, a couple meetings ago, you said 6 of the 8 options were to eliminate Jordan Small. I was on the facilities committee. That's the.
No, I said 3 out of 3. 2 out of the 3 were not 6 out of 8. 2 out of 3 were the options.
Well, and none of those were options we brought forward, right? So as a committee,
yes, there was 3. That was the final.
We brought 2 options. We brought build a new middle school or renovate. And that was how we impacted the cost sharing formula. And I still have the infographic, actually. If you'd like
So do I.
So,
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'll send it to you. There's 2. So, but what I worry about is us bringing up history. We're in a new place. I think, Teresa, you also talked about getting, standing up at a session, having everybody from Wyndham yell at you. I think we're talking about 8 or 9 years ago, right? And so this was back when we were talking about redistricting. It was a highly, obviously, emotional topic for everybody. And I can understand why there were some heated emotions, but I certainly have not seen anything like that in the near future, the distant future. So obviously, I'm opposed to this greatly. I worry that, we're looking at a 1-year budget. We've said that there's a lot of things that are kind of placeholders that the new board will decide. And we know that there's a wild card in terms of special ed and some of the other things here. I just don't think it's possible to replicate the caliber of services we get from RSU. So in closing, I'll say vote no on 1. Thank you.
So Kate, it's your turn.
Thank you. I have a question. I'm sorry, Marshall. I swear I don't just write down questions that are just for you, but I do have a question.
I never take it personally, Kate.
I know.
Above that.
But then I also have a question for my other committee members too. So as you're presenting the $500,000 savings, I'm making the assumption, and I don't ever want to make an assumption, that that is not including the $600,000 in transition costs. Am I correct in that assumption or no?
You're partially correct.
Okay. Hey,
The 600,000, if it is in fact that much, will be spent before July 1st.
Okay.
This is a July 1st and forward budget. Now, if you take a look at the total budget number, we came up with 11.3. And the RSU was targeted to go to, I'm sorry, 10.3, and the RSU was targeted to go to 11.2. So if I wanted to be really brave, I would say 900,000, but I'm not that brave. And I'm a much more conservative spender than this budget might allow me to be. So with that being said, I'm pretty comfortable that we could save $500,000 by doing this. And believe, I have 25 years in the high level business background. And if this was a business, boy, there'd be a lot more savings, but it's not, it's a school. And I understand that.
Yeah, thank you.
Back to you.
So
Dee.
I guess, no, thank you. So who would incur that? Would that be reflected on the town budget? Is that where that would eventually come out?
Incur what?
The $600,000.
That is up to the selectmen to decide where that comes from, but obviously it would have to come from the town somewhere.
Okay. So then my next question again is it would be for Teresa, Joe, and Rolf. I know
Oh,
Rolf,
I'm
you mentioned
being
that
left out now?
you are. I'm sorry. You mentioned that there would be an informational mailer that would be going out. I know this was talked about during a select board meeting. We hadn't necessarily talked about it during, at least in depth, or what my horrible memory recalls, during one of our withdrawal committee meetings. Is this something that all members of the withdrawal committee will see before? And the reason why I'm asking that is only because I was actually caught off guard by what went out in the Raymond Roadrunner. I appreciate that something did go out to people, but I didn't see a copy of that ahead of time. I also completely understand that should it be something we vote on, I would likely be, the lone vote that may not necessarily agree with that. But I guess I would just respect that anything that go out publicly go to all committee members first.
The item of the discussion of when we were discussing how do we get information out to people, it was discussed and agreed in those meetings that there would be a series of informational meetings, as well as a mailer would go out, as well as articles going into the Roadrunner. So to say that you didn't know that is a little bit disingenuous, but moving right along.
No, I didn't.
Moving right along.
No, I didn't. Okay, go ahead.
You said what you said, so now moving right along. Information was sent out to people ahead, here's what's going to be in there. So if you did not respond to those, then I'm sorry, but information was sent to all the committee members to look at that, and we'll do the same thing on the mailer. But
Okay.
If we don't get input, we can't deal with no input. I'm sorry.
Okay. I would just ask that perhaps someone forward the email that was sent to me, because I definitely did not see what was going to be put in the Roadrunner. So, and I also know that there have been issues where I've sent things and it's gotten bounced back by the town. So maybe even if Joe did it, or if someone did it from a non-town email address, which I don't know if you can do that, only for like the law reasons with FOA. But I definitely did not see what was going to go into the Roadrunner. I get it that something went in there, but again, I would just respectfully ask that it is seen by all committee members.
Well, also,
so because I didn't comment because I never saw it. I would be happy to go through all of my emails and check my spam, but I never saw it, a proof of that.
Well, let me just say to Kate,
also what was being presented at those informational meetings at that time. The issue that is that there are incremental changes that have taken place because we actually listened to what people said in the meetings, and we integrated their concerns in there. So we added things and things like that. So there was changes, some of those in the budget, some of those in positions and things like that. So what happens with anything with a paper is you have timelines, and what goes in there, something could have changed since the submittal was done because of the publishing timelines.
And I understand that. However, I'm again just respectfully asking that all committee members are involved in those communications on something that goes out on behalf of the withdrawal committee. As a withdrawal committee member, I feel that I should be able to have that access to what is going out on behalf of the committee of the town I am on, and so that's all I'm asking. I would hope that if I did include you on something, you would question it as well. So again, it's just a very respectful ask.
Charlotte Engelman is next.
Hi, everybody. I want to just kind of mirror a few things that I've heard and a few questions. One is to reiterate the availability of sports. I have kids who have skied with the ski team, and also thinking about the kids who are doing field hockey. When our kids get to high school, they enter a very competitive field in Wyndham. And if we're talking about trying to get 4 kids together to play field hockey, we're not going to see any of those kids playing competitively through their high school career without major parental involvement. And that is a huge cost expense. You're talking about travel leagues and things like that. And I hate to see our kids be put at disadvantage because of a withdrawal like this. Again, I haven't really seen a whole lot advantage. I haven't seen a whole lot talking about what this is going to do for our kids and better. It's been a whole lot of talking about the town saving $500,000, which, again, as everyone has said, is a tentative budget and best anyone can estimate. And also reiterating the issue of us not having representation on the 9 through 12. I think it was Jen that said it, and it said exactly what I was thinking, that it's one thing to not expect to have representation at Baxter Academy or Gray or NYA. That's on parents to take advantage of that. But if we've got $3 million of the town's money going somewhere and we have no say in it, I have an issue with that as a taxpayer. So those are my concerns, and thank you for having these meetings.
There are no other raised hands right now.
If there's no other raised hands, there will be a public hearing on the 20th regarding the question that is under statute that has to be held, and then the actual vote is on the 3rd. But I guess I'd just like to kind of conclude with a couple of observations. I'm a little disappointed from the standpoint that every comment that's being made is not taking into account the fact that the town is more than just the kids. The town is the whole town. We take, this town spends $17,000 plus per student for education each year. So if you take an average household with 2 kids, the town is going to spend $408,000 for their high school to get them from kindergarten through high school, and now adding pre-K and a little bit more than that. That average household also pays a tax of about $2,500 a year, which means it's going to be 161 years to the break-even point. And that's not to say I'm looking at just the budget. What I'm saying here is there's more than just the people going to school that have an investment in this. The people in the town have always been very supportive of the school. When the state came and said, you can't build a gym that big, the town said, we will build it. We don't get as much use out of it as we did in the past. When we had more local control, we had senior dinners at the schools that the kids served the seniors and got to know people in their town. And things like that that are not happening now. It's important that those kids understand that there's more than just their parents that are helping to get them through this whole educational cycle. And that side of it is where we're trying to get and reinvigorate with people, is to get the whole town back involved in this. And right now we're getting less and less of that because they feel they have less say. Or they felt, yet they could go to the town meeting, they would ask questions, they would get answers. Right now you go to a meeting, you ask a question, you get the blank look that says, okay, thank you for asking the question, next question please. So that's what's missing from all the comments that I'm hearing, that I've heard so far. There's nothing that says, how do we get the town back reinvigorated in the school and get the kids to know what's going on in the town?
We do have two raised hands now. Grace, you're first.
So I thought we'd be done, but when you said that, I have to reply, Rolf. That's definitely opinion. I mean, it feels like going to withdrawal is trying to solve a problem, yet this would be creating additional problems. If the problem is you don't have a lot of participation or something like that in the town, I know the select board is always looking for people to serve on committees and things like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's because we don't have our own separate school system. So there are other ways to address that, and it's likely just that people are just incredibly busy. And certainly I would hope that kids understand that there's more to a town than just them and their parents and the school system and all too. But we had community festivals and things like that. I don't know where those have gone. That wasn't dependent on being a separate school community, as a separate school board. But that was, people just got too busy to do those types of things, I guess. I don't know. It'd be great to get back to that, at least post-pandemic, to have some of those community types of events, but that's not dependent on having a separate school system. So, and as far as, life has just gotten busy for a lot of people, and schools are doing so much more than they ever have before. And I think that's where people who are thinking this is what it used to be like don't understand what schools are now doing and what they are providing for kids. And it's so much more than I feel that we are going to be able to do on our own and still do right by our kids without having battle after battle over trying to provide the services and having the budget in place for that. So I think that the RSU has worked really well for both students as well as for staff, and as well as for taxpayers. And so this has been sold as something that would save money. It has not been sold as something that would improve things for kids. It's started because if there were, I think, very poor communications about what some of the select board felt was happening with the public works garage. That's not what I understand to have been the case. I think that what the RSU decided to do there in terms of having space for the buses that transport our kids was a wise move and was very efficient. And if I'd been sitting on that RSU seat, I would have also done that. That was a long-term savings ultimately. And so that got people angry, however, on the select board. And so here we are with this whole process, very long process. And again, with very little communication since the December 9th hearing until just recently, these all hearings. And again, I appreciate that you've done so many of these. Unfortunately, given the pandemic, even with you doing things on Zoom and trying to hold in-person meetings, I don't know how much real factual information has gotten out to people. Hopefully that mailer does have more factual, correct information than the 2-page spread in the Wyndham Eagle, because that was misleading. It looked like, whoa, it's costing us this much more to be in the RSU. That wasn't true. That, or even, again, knowing everything's an estimate, I realize that, but that's what's out there now. So I hope that can be corrected, and that people that are just concerned about the bottom line realize it's not that big of a savings, and that people that are concerned about kids and having the best opportunities and having a good RSU system, and yes, a great administration and great staff, that's really doing everything they can to provide for kids, even now, I hope that they're understanding that. So I absolutely will be voting no. We'll be encouraging people to vote no on this withdrawal. It's not what's best for kids. And that's the bottom line.
I'd like to say something on that. Grace, that's your opinion. That's great. I have a different one. And wait, please let me finish. And the way that you keep saying everything that we are putting out there is conjecture. Preschool would not even be happening if we did not have the state funds. And then somebody is putting down there that we have to have preschool because parents have to have daycare because they can't get out of their business. You know, they have to work. I get that. But everybody has an opinion, and it doesn't mean somebody else's opinion is wrong. I see things differently than you do. It was my opinion that this school garage, this maintenance garage that was built was under an agreement. Okay, and that's how I took it. And so I did. And it was my opinion to take out the withdrawal petition. I see things differently. I also see it maybe not as a savings, but also local control. You know, when I hear people saying, you know, it'd be nice to go to those meetings again. It'd be nice to be able to have 5 people on a board, you know, looking at Raymond's. And again, you have your opinion, and I respect that. I really do. I have mine, but it's not just conjectures. And I don't think it's fair that everybody on here is saying that. So I've been sitting and listening, and I'm really trying to be respectful of your thoughts. I respect why everybody is doing this, but I also feel that this was important to me to be able to do this. And I don't think I'm putting out false information on there. We are trying to do those numbers as best as we can. The school had 9 versions of it. We really are. But again, we never, you know what, and whatever we give you right now may not even be guaranteed with the new school board either. So we don't even know with what happened with COVID. Nothing is guaranteed. We can give you the best that we can give. And I really believe that with the school board in this town, we can give if the people do decide to withdraw. I don't know about all the sports programs. You know, it's something that parents should check into, but it seems to be a big issue.
I did not say you put up false information. I'm saying that the information that came out in the Wyndham Eagle and that is still on the website is now quite different given the hearings that you've had, and that's my concern. I'm not sure that people will see, especially since absentee ballots are coming out soon too, the corrected figures in terms of the savings, if that's what's most important to them. And they're going to be voting on that basis. So I did not say you put up false information. I did say, yes, a lot of this is opinions. Some of it has been stated as though it's fact. So the bus garage thing, that's a whole nother issue, and I'm not going to go over that umpteen times again.
I know.
But it's still, I've written down a few quotes that have been said. I've watched the meetings a few times, not entirely. I'm not that crazy that I'm sitting and watching these meetings multiple times, but I have caught a few segments here and there on the cable channel. So, and it's like, really, they're saying this, but that's not fact. That is someone's opinion, and I just want to be sure people are understanding the. And one thing we agree on: there are no guarantees in any of this. Absolutely. And so that's really troublesome, though, in terms of people feeling that there might be and voting based on that. So really, that's probably the biggest concern I have going forward. What's going to be happening to our kids in Raymond? So, thank you.
Anna Keeney is next.
All right, guys, it's me again. I just have to say, you know, this is the 4th one of these that I've come to. They've been a bit of a roller coaster, but I've appreciated that every time I've asked a question, it's been answered, and I've gotten sometimes a couple of answers calmly and respectfully. But Mr. Olson, that was pretty, that riled me a little bit. I've come and I've asked the questions that are important to me and to the community that I'm part of, that I'm connected with. So to tell me that my questions are not the questions I should be asking, whether your intention was to say that or not, that's how it came across, was not acceptable. I'm sitting here as a community member asking the questions that I need to ask to be able to make an informed decision. You know, we've talked about, we could go back to these town meetings and have whatever room filled up. You get a town meeting and you have 300 people show up, you still don't even have close to half the town. So I mean, that's a moot point in my opinion. It's still, you're still not getting the majority of the community's opinion on it. But, you know, that was to say as part of the committee that's put forward this withdrawal, you know, you're supposed to be researching and helping us understand, to then turn around and say that we're asking the wrong questions and we're focused on the wrong thing. That's offensive, and it's angering. It's disrespectful.
I did not say you were asking the wrong question. As I said, no one was asking the other side of the question, which was where is the input and how the rest of the town is involved in this, you know.
Well, I mean, if they wanted to ask
Questions
those
that were
questions,
asked,
they
you know,
come and ask
I have no problem with the
one of
questions
these that we've done.
what's going to happen, you know, with that. But my point was that we're trying to look at how do we bring the whole town involved into all this, and that's, you know, and if I wasn't clear on that, I'm sorry, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't have asked the questions you did. That's the reason that we had these meetings, was to get these questions out there. Obviously, even in these meetings, we didn't have as many people come in all the different venues and whatnot as we had hoped, but you know, it is what it is.
Just goes back to, I think, Grace's point too. We might be asking the wrong question, not should we withdraw from the RSU, but maybe we should be asking, how can we get our community more involved?
Jen is next.
Yeah, that was basically the comment I was going to make. I appreciate, Ralph, the memory of engaging the seniors, but those are things we can do now in the current RSU. There's no reason, just as Teresa suggests, go to the school, ask them about sports. We can go to the school and suggest anything. We can do that as townspeople. And the tuition, you know, the RSU has always been very forthcoming about what our tuition rate is compared to other RSUs, the comparable size. And it has always been demonstrated to be a value. So I don't know why we're characterizing it as an overcharge or an overpayment. Again, I think we get a good value for our school. Thank you.
There are currently no hands raised. There is a hand raised, just a moment. Bill, you're next.
Hi, folks. Thank you for holding these meetings. It's really helpful for us as we look at what our future holds. One of my questions was just around budget. You mentioned before, I know RSU's had 9 versions of the budget. This is the first version of our budget, I believe. And I'm just kind of curious about the detail. I know there's numbers there, but what does that, you know, 1.8 million, 2.3 million, what does that all mean? What does that actually include in that number? Just trying to get a better grip. Is there more detail that will be shared out at some point so the community will have a better idea what we're actually voting on budget-wise?
I'll speak to this. This is not the first version. This is the 5th version that we've produced.
Okay.
And to answer your question about detail, the budget that I worked from is the RSU 14 version 9 budget, which is posted on our website. It also has instructions on how to decode that budget to bring in Raymond and Raymond only information. And I'm not sure how further we need to go with any of that. It's quite a detailed budget. It's 86 pages long. It's probably, well, it's 4,000, 5,000 lines of code. So their budget is there, and the Raymond side of it can be decoded following the instructions. And I'll go through those instructions now if you wish.
That'd be great, because I couldn't find the instructions to decode it on the website.
If you take a look at the RSU 14 budget on the far left-hand side, you will see a series of blue numbers.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 numbers. Then there are 4 numbers. Then there are, I think, a third 4 numbers. And then there are 5 numbers. And then there are 3 numbers. And those 3 numbers are the key to that. And 100 is RES, and 110 is Jordan Small. And if you follow that all the way through the budget, you will see that. Also, if you look at the budget, there are directorships, cost centers. 51 is, I think it's Raymond Elementary, and 71 is Jordan Small,
Mhm.
which are called out in their entirety. But there are also other 100 and 110 expenses in the other categories. Does that help you?
It does, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
I have another question, if I can ask that.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
just curious about technology for students. I know we're one-to-one mostly throughout the district. Is that going to be continued through the budget?
I'm
Is
not
that
sure I understand what one-to-one means.
Each student has a laptop or an iPad device.
Those are coming forward.
Thank you.
Charlotte Engelman is next.
Just one follow on that question. If you guys have already decoded the budget and are on the 5th version now, why is it up to community members to dive in and try to make their own guesstimates as to what is going to match your budget?
There is no matching. It's pretty much verbatim. All we did was take the 100s and the 110s out of the 14 and consolidated it in.
So if that's all what it is, then please just put it somewhere so that people aren't having to go and do that work. Because there's a lot on the ballot this year and there's a lot of things for people to decide. So the simpler you can make this for people, the better it would be for the community.
Well, at this point in time, I'm sorry to say.
That's why the summary sheet is there, is because that does boil it back. But what you're saying, what people are saying is we want the details. And the details is the V9 budget. That is the details. The summary sheet takes those and summarizes those into those areas. But the detail is the RSU 14 budget. So what they had
So
in
where do those four
into the
changes on your
cost
budgeting
because
come
we
in?
took in theirs and just brought that over.
Was there a question there?
So where are the 4 different iterations you said that have been changed if this is the 5th budget? So how do we figure that out?
That's past history. There's no reason to even hang on to that. You can't go into the RSU 14 website and find version 7 of the budget with version 3. You can only find version 9.
Just said that we can look at the base budget from the 9th one from the town and the RSU. But if you took that as your base and have made changes since then,
I'm not hearing this.
I really appreciate to pull it out and highlight it.
Is that my speaker? Or is it?
I couldn't hear that.
Back or something there, I'm not sure.
Charlotte, you still there?
I'm not, we lost part of your question. It got garbled. Can you please restate?
Trying to find service, maybe.
From what I understand, her question possibly could be, she wants us to go in and pull out or highlight or whatever it is, the version 9 budget. And it's
actually, Marshall, what I think where she was saying is we've said we've gone through a number of iterations on the budget we presented, and she was looking to see what changed from one to the other in regards to that. And those have all been picked up in the notes that you had.
Yes, they have. In the budget summaries, they've been picked up.
And unfortunately, her phone line, I don't know if she was a phone or if she was coming in over the computer, but it was.
Well, and I think she may have turned it off to try and sign back in.
I mean, it's also, if she does, if she wants to clarify that question, she can send that to the rsu14.withdrawal@raymondmaine.org, and then
Yes.
we can see exactly what she's asking there.
We haven't gotten any questions there.
Next is Messers.
Hi, this is Melissa Messer. I guess I have a quick question to start to the committee members. I'm interested after the last meeting where Superintendent Howell raised the document in regards to the bus garage and the cost sharing agreement and that misunderstanding. Have any of you had a chance to look over that legal document that was really defining of whose responsibility was what?
What he did not have was the letter that went from our lawyer to the school board, which has still not been answered, with specific questions as to that. I understand what he's saying as far as lease and whatnot, but the issue was the lease was kind of lease was kind of a loose term in regards to there. There were specific questions that were asked, and for 2.5 years, that letter has not been answered.
Okay, but it's my understanding after watching, I've been to all the other meetings, I was not there. I did go back and watch the coverage of the last meeting. It's my understanding that he was willing to leave that document behind for any of you to look through that detail. And my question is, did any of you take the opportunity to look through that?
It did not change what was asked in the questions that were submitted to the school board that have never been responded to.
But he brought it to a meeting and responded. And my question to you tonight is, did you take the opportunity to read the segment that you have questioned all along? I guess I'll make a statement now then, and that is this, is that I said it in the meeting when we were present at the firehouse. There have been opportunities to talk to people to get facts, not just opinions, but facts about what is occurring in the school. Have we talked to teachers? The answer was no. Have we heard from the principal? She came through. I read some of her testimony. And I have this sheet in front of me, 3 reasons documented August 21st, 2018, sent from the town of Raymond and the commissioner, the 3 reasons why we're going to withdraw from the school. 1, the RSU has been unwilling to redistrict where whole students are transported and utilize the available space, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, talking about the classroom spaces and the extended units. Superintendent Howell in one of our meetings explained how that worked, explained the benefit to the RSU to do that classroom situation that was occurring in Windham. Number 2, RSU towns voted to amend the cost sharing agreements, the expansion of the formula to address all costs. The CSA identified the cost expansion of a new footprint. You're referring to the town garage. Superintendent Howell responded to that at the last meeting with the paperwork that showed what the agreement was in legalities. That is a fact, that is not an opinion. The 3rd reason for withdrawal from the RSU 14 would be giving Raymond ability to control its own school unit and education in the best interest of its students. Again, I go back to the people who are doing this job every single day. I refer to our board members on the school board, our former school board members, our principals, and our teachers at the school. Nobody respected them enough to sit down and ask them where they are as far as, will this give the best to our students? You're not taking advantage of listening to the experts who are working with our kids every single day, who are giving their advice every single day, who are giving you responses fast to what over and over, the frustration of asking these same questions. Some of these questions tonight with budget are the same questions we've asked for 5 meetings in a row, and it's not getting any further. So we can talk about facts and opinions, but you've had the experts in front of you with paperwork, with testimony. I would advise you strongly to pay attention to what those people who are working with our children every day, those people who are sitting on the board every day and hearing all the ins and outs. I would strongly advise you to participate with Superintendent Howell, who has showed nothing but a willingness to cooperate with us and answer any questions that we may have. If you truly want a one Raymond, that is how you get it. Thank you for your
Okay, Phil is next.
Hey, just coming back to technology, just I know that in looking at some of the budget items, it doesn't seem like I know we're talking a 1-year budget that's you put out, Marshall, or the committee's put out. But I don't see anything to talk about the level of replacement of machines that we would need, the level of care that we need to keep these things maintained, and then what would the committee look at or budget proposal be to have a long-term plan included in that would be the phasing in and out of machines as they expire. That to me seems like a pretty costly piece that's not included in the budget.
You're muted, Marshall.
I unmuted. You're unmuted.
Did you mute me on purpose there, Sue?
Well, you wandered away and made clunking noises.
Well, I've got an issue going on here, so anyway, I'm not sure I can fully answer that question other than saying that our tech people met with Wyndham's tech people, and I think that most of the bases have been pretty covered, number one. Number two, this is a 1-year budget. Whatever happens to this budget after year 1 would include some of that information. And I realize that those little white laptops, if you still have those, have to be replaced as time goes by. I think, and I'm comfortable in saying, that our technology people are pretty accurate on what they've given me as far as their numbers.
I'm just not seeing any long-term, well, I know, and it's hard to say long-term in a 1-year term, but
Exactly.
so there really doesn't seem to be a plan to support that.
I was asked to put out a 1-year budget. I was not asked to go to a 5-year plan, which make sense here. But it
Nope. And I understand that. It doesn't even seem like in a 1-year plan, there's a plan to support that if we need to replace stuff.
Right.
I would kind of agree with what with the Messers had shared. You know, for me, I feel like if we're going to unify and collaborate, it needs to begin at the top. And I would love to see that happen more often than not. It seems like it's pretty divisive more at the top, but unified within the communities. So I appreciate the time you've put into this. I just feel like we've put a lot of money into a hole that we won't get back, and we could have used that in a lot of other places in our community to support our kids and our families. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it, but I feel like it's wasted time.
There are currently no raised hands.
In that case, thank you all for attending, and we'll have the updated information will be put onto the website, and look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.